Hi everyone, we're now live on YouTube. I have a question for you. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have a lot of issues with psychic attack, entity attachments, spiritual warfare, or targeting by the dark forces? And other people don't seem to have an issue with it at all. They seem pretty impervious. And in fact, there can be a family living in a house that's haunted, and one person is much more targeted than the others. Why is that? There's a reason. So there are actually things that can make a person more vulnerable to psychic attack and spiritual warfare. And we're going to talk about those things today. I have a list of 7 things that can make a person more vulnerable to spiritual warfare. Hi everybody, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary. And before we dive all the way in, give me a moment and I'm going to do a little tech check as people are joining live. So this is January 2026, and we did not have a class last month. And usually when we've skipped a month,
did not have a class last month.
Okay, mute. So we did not have a class last month due to the holidays, and usually then we usually do that every year. And then when we jump back in for the January class, I'm never sure if we'll have a big group or not, but regardless, shout out to everybody who's joining us here live. Please let me know where you're joining from. And also a shout out to everyone who is watching the replay. Thank you for being here. I am a teacher. I'm a spiritual teacher. I have a degree in teaching, and I just cannot get rid of that teacher archetype. And with that said, I really think you should have a pen and paper today and take notes. If you're in a space where you're able to do that, obviously not if you're driving or multitasking, but I think writing these down for future reference will be really important. So, and this is pretty casual. Think of this as like a chat, drinking tea together in my living room. So let's dive right in. As always, I've got a couple pages of notes, and I need to look at those just to make sure. Okay, so before we dive into this lesson, these 7 aspects that can make a person more vulnerable to spiritual warfare, let's go over a couple of announcements just real quick while we're waiting for more people to join. And the Kindred Story says, hi, it's me from Toronto, Canada. Cool. I'm not sure who it is, though. I know a couple people in Toronto. So I'm glad that you're here. And Tony is here. Good to see you. So let's go over a couple of quick announcements. So those of you who would like to know more about how to work with me after watching this video, if your interest is piqued, then I invite you to visit my website, which is psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And there are a couple of ways to work with me. And Kindred Story is saying, I just happened to pop on YouTube and saw you were teaching live, so I'm popping in. You know me. Okay, well, I believe you, but I don't know. I'm not all knowing. I don't know who I think is the, okay, anyway, I could guess. I'm pretty sure I know who it is, but not totally sure. Anyway, so there are a couple of ways that you can work with me. But if you want to receive mentoring and guidance, the way that you would receive that is through Spiritual Empowerment Academy. You can find information about that on my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And there's a brand new program coming out very soon in the next month or 2 months. And you can get notifications on that by signing up for my newsletter. And you can do that on my website. So the new program is called the Psychic Protection Solution. And it is really exciting. It's a self-study course. It is, I'll tell you more about it later, but it's definitely a step-by-step. I take you step-by-step through everything that you need to do to resolve spiritual warfare issues. It is a self-study course, but the first group that joins will actually have a Q&A Zoom with me once a month, so you will have access to me. After that, it'll be completely self-study. But the first group that joins will get a once a month Q&A for 6 months. It'll be awesome. More info about that later. And then, of course, I have books on Amazon. You can just look those up, all about psychic attack and false light and all sorts of stuff. And I think that's it for announcements. So let's get into our lesson. First, let's talk about why is it important to even explore the question of what makes a person vulnerable to psychic attack. Why should we even explore that? Well, wouldn't you want to know if you have some of those vulnerabilities and you could address those vulnerabilities so you will be less vulnerable? So whether you have been dealing with spiritual warfare and that has brought you to my channel, or Max is saying, are you okay? I don't know. Oh, yeah. So the kindred story. Okay. If your name begins with K, I know who you are. All right. If it's something else, I'm confused. That's okay. So, let's see. Let me get back on track. Sorry about that. So why is this important? If you can address some of those issues, those vulnerabilities, if you've been dealing with issues of spiritual warfare, then you can reduce those issues by addressing these vulnerabilities that I'm going to talk about today. If you haven't been dealing with spiritual warfare issues, but you have some of these vulnerabilities that I'm going to talk about today, you have an increased chance of having spiritual warfare, psychic attack issues in the future. So you'll want to address these issues. Now, some of the things that I'm going to talk about are going to be unpopular. You might not like everything that I have to say. That's okay. You don't have to agree with me, but it is my duty to tell you the truth about what I see. Yeah. Okay. All right. So if you have a pen and paper, get ready to write down the first thing that can make you more vulnerable to spiritual warfare. Number one is, if you are an empath, you could be more vulnerable to negative spiritual experiences. So this fits right in with what I spoke about a little while ago of a family living in a haunted house. And if there's one or more family members that are empaths, that are sensitive spiritually, then those are the ones who are going to be attacked. And those are the ones that are going to have negative symptoms of living in the haunted house. And the others who are not empaths are most likely going to have less effect or no negative effect at all. And this is because being an empath means that you're sensitive and you perceive and pick up on and feel spiritual encounters, whether they're positive or negative, more than other people. So being an empath can be a positive thing. It can be a gift, but it can also make you more vulnerable to perceiving those negative types of spiritual interactions as well. So if you are an empath, the solution or the thing, obviously you can't just stop being an empath. I think it's actually, I'm an empath, and it's actually, it's a good thing being an empath. I really think it's a gift. But the thing that I would recommend is to engage in as much grounding as you can. Engage in as much grounding as you can. So that would be connecting with the earth, like literally going outside, feet on the ground, or other types of meditations where you're focusing on grounding. The more grounded you are, the more you can handle being an empath. Okay? Number 2 reason why you might be more vulnerable to spiritual warfare is if you simply don't know how to protect your energy. You just haven't learned yet. And there's no shame in that. But everyone starts somewhere. So you may have found your way to this channel and you don't yet know how to ground. You don't yet know how to shield, how to protect your energy. You don't yet have your levels of spiritual discernment that are necessary for spiritual pursuits. There are many people engaging in spiritual pursuits without proper discernment. So it's important to know how to manage and protect and ground your energy. Now, on this Facebook, I keep saying Facebook, YouTube, because we used to do Facebook Lives. On this YouTube channel, I tend to talk about what are the issues. Like today, we're talking about the things that can make you vulnerable to spiritual warfare. And I tend to focus most of my teaching on like how to resolve these issues within my paid programs. And that's because I feel that's the most ethical way to do it, so that I can give you guidance and teach you the proper methods along the way. But just know that wherever you learn these methods from, grounding, shielding, protecting, discernment, etc., wherever you learn those methods, you need to take the time to learn how to protect your energy, how to manage your energy. It's a necessity. And especially if you have been having any kind of negative spiritual experiences, you need to learn how to manage your energy like yesterday. You need to do it. Okay. You can, I do go over some really good methods in my second book, the psychicattack Sourcebook. And you can find that on Amazon. So that will definitely help you get started. And then we go deeper in the paid programs. So that's one tangible way that you can learn how to manage your energy. So again, there's no shame in not knowing, but if you don't know how to protect your energy, that is one reason why some people can be extra vulnerable, because they're just walking through the world and maybe they have some of these other factors. They're also an empath, and they also don't know how to protect their energy. So it's kind of a double whammy. All right, ready to go on to number 3. Number 3 is the person is vulnerable because they have a damaged aura. So their personal energy field is damaged. Therefore, negative entities, negative energies, black magic, curses, all sorts of energies that don't belong end up in the person's energy field because they don't have the natural boundaries, the natural shield that your aura should provide. There are holes or tears in the aura that allow some of these negative things in. Now, how does the aura become damaged? It can become damaged from trauma. So from emotional trauma, from physical trauma, physical abuse, but also from things like medical trauma, surgeries, getting in an accident, an auto accident, or some other kind of accident. So physical traumas. So again, physical traumas, emotional and verbal abuse, any kind of trauma that you can think of, physical, emotional, etc. All of that can create tears in the person's energy field. Obviously, it's not a person's fault if they experienced some of these things. But now that you know that it can make you more vulnerable, it's important to do whatever work you feel is appropriate to address those traumas and to work on healing. And that can be therapy, it can be talking with friends, it can be journaling, or some type of spiritual practice, or something else that helps you to address the trauma. There are other factors that can cause damage to a person's aura. Stress. If a person is living a high stress lifestyle, whether they're just busy all the time, they have a family and 50 million commitments, or their job is super stressful, or they're going through some type of personal stress or any kind of stress, that can weaken the aura. In general, an unhealthy lifestyle can weaken the aura. And I'm not here to tell people to exercise or how to eat or anything like that. That's really your choice. I believe everyone has free will, but I also believe it's important for you to know that if you're engaging in an unhealthy lifestyle, like lack of sleep, terrible food, just all those unhealthy habits, smoking, smoking too much, drinking too much, all those things, putting a lot of toxins in your body. It's taxing on not only your body, but on your energy field. And it weakens the aura, making it easier for psychic attack to get in. And then so now we're really in the area of aspects that I mentioned before that are a little bit unpopular, and it's okay if you don't agree, but it's my duty to tell you the truth. And so another aspect that can damage a person's aura is doing drugs. And yes, even in today's day and age, the drugs that are socially acceptable, even those can damage the aura. Now, I'll say again, I believe in free will. I believe everyone should have the free will to choose what you do with your body and what habits you partake in. I totally believe in free will. But I also see that it damages a person's aura to do really any kind of drugs. Even those that are considered medicinal or sacred. I do think that there are ways to do sacred medicines if it is done in exceedingly safe space, but it still damages the aura. There's stuff that can get in, and a lot of aura repair is needed afterwards. So I'm not saying that no one can do these things. There are sacred practices that are part of indigenous cultures. That is true, but use caution. So for example, if you've been dealing with spiritual warfare, psychic attack, entity issues, and you're like, I'm so done with this, I hate this, I've been struggling for so long, but you're still partaking in it, certain habits, certain lifestyle practices, or certain sacred practices, plant medicines, etc. You're not helping. And I know that some of you won't like that. Again, that's fine. I really believe in what I'm saying. I believe in free will, but I believe that it does damage the aura. So just consider. And there are people that I've worked with where they were dealing with a lot of physical pain, and they were medicating with cannabis, and it was kind of a compromise. Like, I helped them understand that sometimes we have to make a compromise, that they were dealing with spiritual warfare, but they were in a lot of physical pain, and that cannabis was helping with the pain. So there are times when we compromise. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, but just know it does damage the aura. Lack of sleep and overall exhaustion can damage the aura, and toxic relationships. Toxic relationships. So just take a second and think about your life, just out of with curiosity, not with self-judgment, and just think for a moment, were there any relationships that I was in, whether it was family or a partner, where that person was really toxic? And was there an increase in negative spiritual activity? If you're someone who's experienced spiritual targeting, was there an increase in negative spiritual activity? Or was there an increase in secondary psychic attack? That's where the dark forces work through a person or people to attack you, causing the person to harm you in to some degree. So let's just take a breather for a second, get a drink. So number 3 took us a little while. We had number 1, being an empath makes you sensitive, more vulnerable to psychic attack. Number 2, if you don't yet know how to protect your energy, how to manage your energy, that can make you vulnerable. Number 3, a damaged aura. And let's just take a second, and I'll say hi to you guys before we go through the rest. Welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone had a good holiday. Not Gun Shy is saying hello from Florida, USA. Yes. Good to see you all. I do want to let you all know, so I keep saying Facebook, our YouTube Live it has been on the first Tuesday of the month, and that's when we're doing it right now, first Tuesday of the month. I have been thinking about changing it to another day, but I haven't decided yet. So if I do decide to do that, I will make plenty of announcements. So just a heads up on that. We have a couple of people posting weird things, but since it's just me and I don't have an admin with me, I'm not going to delete them. So just ignore the strange messages, strange comments. All right, let's get back to our list. Now, I just want to say, like, our lesson today, our class today, our topic today, it isn't really like exciting or flashy. Like, there are some topics that are like really exciting sounding, right? This is not so flashy, but it's important. Like, if you have found this channel because you're struggling with spiritual targeting of some kind, you need to know about what things are making you more vulnerable so that you can address those things. Yeah. Super important. So that this is going to help you. Even so, let's say you take the tools, the clearing and the protection tools that I share with you in the Psychic Attack Sourcebook. And then you also take this list that I'm going to share that I'm sharing with you today, and you address some of these things, or you evaluate, you think about, okay, how can I modify this behavior, or how can I reduce this so that I'm not encouraging more spiritual warfare. And so that it's like, if you're not addressing some of these vulnerabilities, it's like the analogy of trying to scoop water out of a rowboat with a bucket, trying to scoop the water out so you're not sinking and there's holes in the bucket. and you keep scooping, but you don't ever plug up the holes, right? So you've got to address some of these vulnerabilities. Otherwise, like, you're just going to keep sinking, and you're going to be working super hard all the time to do all this like spiritual warfare stuff. But if you can take care of the things that are drawing it in the first place, that will help make your life so much more peaceful. Okay, so Not Gunshy says, a toxic relationship really harmed me. Had I known, I would have left sooner, but I at least got out and am recouping slowly. I'm glad you finally got out. I know a lot of us, the members of my Spiritual Empowerment Academy, and also many subscribers here, that we've had toxic relationships where the dark forces have like sent that partner or different partners into our lives in order to access us for spiritual warfare, in order to weaken our system, and as part of the attack. Felix says, just subscribed, been watching your videos and resonate with them. Welcome, Felix. I'm just so happy that you are here. I haven't done an official count, but I think there's about 300 videos on the channel. There's a lot. So you could watch for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then, and the students in my academy have a whole other library of videos, and those videos are focused on how to solve these issues. So the library here on YouTube is tons of information about spiritual warfare, psychic attack, like how and why all of this happens, and there's so much to learn. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's get into number 4. Number 4 reason why a person might be more vulnerable to spiritual warfare is open curiosity to spiritual seeking without proper discernment, grounding, and protection. So let me repeat that. A person is very openly curious about their spiritual pursuits, but they don't have proper grounding. They don't have proper protection. And first and foremost, they don't have proper discernment. Discernment is the first thing that you should have to be able to perceive if what you're getting involved with is even safe or unsafe. Whether it's a spiritual practice or going to a spiritual event, working with a spiritual teacher, and all the things, all the different spiritual pursuits. If you don't have the discernment to tell that something is unsafe, then you're walking into the lion's den. So discernment is important first and foremost. And then you'll be able to avoid the things that are going to get you into trouble. But if you have proper discernment, and you also are grounded and very stable in yourself, you're not easily blown over by any type of negative energies, and you have spiritual protection around you, which I teach in the Psychic Attack Sourcebook, and I teach really in depth in both of my programs, the one that's going to be coming out soon and my academy. So there's a lot of things that you can learn for protecting your energy. But if you are openly curious and practicing different things and you don't have these things in place, proper discernment, grounding, and protection, you'll be in real trouble. So let me give you an example of some spiritual practices. Practicing divination, channeling, ritual work, working with spiritual tools like oracle cards, pendulum. But by the way, I am not I actually use pendulum and oracle cards, and I like using spiritual tools. So I'm pro spiritual tools, but you've got to have the discernment, the grounding, and the protection. You can't just be going in willy-nilly and expect things to go well. So if you're engaging in any type of ritual work, paranormal investigations. So if someone is involved, if they're a paranormal investigator and they don't practice discernment, grounding, and protection, and this goes back to number 2, if you don't know how to protect your energy, how to ground, shield, protect, and discern, you're going to be in real trouble. So if you're openly curious and doing paranormal investigation or even energy work or any type of spiritual work, so if you're working with clients or working with friends, doing energy work on friends, and you don't have protection, you don't have grounding, then you're going to be picking up all sorts of stuff, and that's bad news. So you can absolutely do energy work. You can do all of these things. You can do all of these spiritual pursuits. I mean, you're probably here because you are a spiritual seeker. Seeking and practicing things, practicing spirituality is a good thing, but you need to have the discernment, the grounding, and the protection. Celestial Seven Heavens, thank you for adding to my list. This is a great reason why, this is another reason why it's wonderful that we are here together live, is because sometimes people add ideas or ask questions that help to enhance the content. And you're right, Celestial says that astral travel is also dangerous. People have shared they got attacked or hijacked. Absolutely. That is so important. And I will add that to my list. Thank you. That's extremely important. It should be on the list. Astral travel. I personally, because astral travel is so problematic, I personally don't astral travel. But again, I believe in personal freedom. If you want to astral travel, then that's fine. But just know that it really creates a huge vulnerability. So if someone is really in the middle of getting blasted with psychic attack, that's really not a good time to be learning or practicing astral travel. If your spiritual life is pretty calm and you're not experiencing attack, as long as you are grounding and protecting yourself and using discernment, you might be okay. So you could choose accordingly. Yeah? Okay. Let's see, we have a couple of questions before we go on to the next few. Okay. And it's so great to have all of you. It took a little while for everybody to join. It's like, oh, hey, Maya's back. It's January. I'll go ahead and answer a question. Not Gun Shy says, do you recommend doing the grounding, etc., before a reading? Or, so I assume you're asking, like, if you're doing a reading for a client or for yourself. Or is a daily practice of grounding, shielding, etc. enough? Or do you need an additional one at readings too? That's a great question. So this is my personal and professional opinion. As some of you know, I have worked specifically in the field of spiritual protection. I feel like I have to sneeze. Sorry, guys. Always keeping it real. I've worked in the field specifically of spiritual warfare for a decade. It's 10 years now. And 30 years as a spiritual healer. So I had 20 years of doing energy work and readings, psychic readings. I did 20 years of all of that before I really super focused on psychic protection. So 30 years of doing all of the things. And from all of that experience, I will say definitively that you must do grounding before each client. You must ground. Even if it's not an hour of grounding, you need, okay, I have a very strong opinion about this. Everybody do whatever you feel is right, but I'm just going to say what I really think. You need to schedule a certain length of time between clients. Do not schedule back to back. It is not fair for your clients, and it's not healthy spiritually for them. It's not healthy spiritually for you, even if you're working on Zoom or on the phone. Those people who are doing psychic hotlines, that's a little trickier because you get calls back to back. But I'm just speaking about general client work. You need to take at least 5 minutes to ground, at least 3 minutes. Take at least 3 minutes to ground and center before you work with your client. You'll do a better reading for them if you do. And then after the client, directly after, you must clear your energy and disconnect your energy from theirs. Otherwise, you're going to, at the end of your client day, you're going to be carrying everybody's energy with you. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Use what works for you. I teach different methods in my academy, but hopefully that answers your question. You need to have a spiritual, like a daily spiritual protocol, either every morning or every night, whether you're working with clients or not. Everyone should have a routine, even if you're not under attack. Okay? Everyone should have a routine. It can be a simpler routine if you're not under attack and you don't have many spiritual issues. It can be just a simple routine. But those who are under attack, often will have to spend like 15, 20 minutes every morning, or every morning and every night. Okay? So if you're under attack, then you'll need to do more. You'll need to have a daily practice. And I teach all of that. Just want you to know where you can go for more. You can find all sorts of content on how to protect and ground yourself in a variety of places, like online, all the different places. But if you want to know how I teach it, the daily routines will be step by step in my new program, the Psychic Protection Solution. And that's coming very soon. So right now it's January 2026. I hope to be sending out emails and making it available within a month to 6 weeks. So it's almost done. Okay. So if you want to know what to do for a daily routine and you need that like very clear guidance, but if you're more self-directed and you already have your ways of doing it, great. But you need to be doing it daily. And then if you're working with clients, then you need to have a practice that you do before and after your clients. Yeah? So thank you for asking that question, because that's like an opportunity for me to get on my soapbox. I was scrolling through Facebook yesterday and I saw a post in a Reiki group, and the person was asking like, what should I do for grounding? And people were like, oh, I just work with my clients back to back. And I really wanted to get on there and be like, don't do that. But I've learned like, yeah, I'm just not going to say anything because everybody has their way of doing it. I'm not going to boss everyone around. Yes. Okay. Let's move on. Yeah. Not gun shy says, got it. Clearing ground between clients. And if reading for myself, if you're reading for yourself, I think a simple grounding beforehand, right before you start, grounding and centering within yourself, so that the messages that you're getting are coming from your inner guidance and not from a false light entity that's pretending to be your spirit guide, etc. So the more grounded and centered you are, the better. It's not as important to do a clearing afterwards. If you're not working with clients, you're just doing your own reading. Yeah. Not Gun Shy says, thank you very much. I value your opinion. I value you guys too. Thank you for being here. Not Gun Shy says, I am in the academy. It's been my lifeline. I highly recommend it. And since you have a pseudonym here, I'm not sure who you are, But you can let me know in the Academy Facebook group. You can reveal yourself so I know who I've been talking to. Lyle says, recently I've had lots of people/beings trying to kill me in my dreams. It's a little unusual for me. Yeah, I might cover that topic of astral attacks in a future YouTube live. So stay tuned for that. Really sorry that's happening. And I also I have some lessons in how to protect yourself at night in the upcoming program, the Psychic Protection Solution. So think about, once that information comes out, maybe consider signing up for that so you can get some support. That is the worst, when our sleep is disrupted, because we're in such a vulnerable state when you're sleeping. Yeah. Michael says, okay, that would be great. I'm okay. It's just something I've noticed. Wonder why it's happening. I've been on my own quite a bit. I do have a video on my channel where I talk about astral travel. And you can look that up. Go to my channel, go to YouTube. Once this is done, type in astral travel Maya Zahira, and you'll see the video. But my sense is it'll give you some information, but I don't think it has like the solution-oriented information that you might need. But in the meantime, I do think there can be some methods that can help you in the Psychic Attack Sourcebook. So, and by the way, before we go on to the final list, if anyone has ever self-published a book, you know that you do it because it's a labor of love, and you want to get the story or the information out there. Like, nobody gets rich from self-publishing a book. So when I talk about this book or that book, it's because I'm trying to help guide you toward, like, here's this packet of information that I've created in an easy to digest format, and this particular book will help you. Today I've been talking about the Psychic Attack Sourcebook, but there are I've got 4 books total. And so just think of them as resources. They're very inexpensive resources where you can receive a different kind of information than what's here on the channel. Okay, number 5, thing that can make you vulnerable to spiritual warfare issues. Number 5 is past exposure to haunted environments or paranormal activity. So if you happen to be someone who is experiencing some type of negative spiritual activity in your life, and that's why you're here on the channel, think back in your life. And I'd be really curious, you guys share in the comments right now, can you think back to paranormal experiences that happened earlier? So oftentimes they are childhood experiences, like you lived in a house that had paranormal activity, or there was someone in your family or someone who visited your home who was spiritually disturbed in some way. Or you visited a location that had entities, like you were with your friends and you went into a graveyard, or you went into something, and then there was some paranormal activity that you experienced. Think back, and you'll often remember, if you are someone who's having negative spiritual activity now, it's often the case that the first level of activity happened when you were a child. And what happens is a person is, quote, tagged early in life. So like it puts a mark on your aura so that as an adult or later on in life, maybe your paranormal situations happened in your 20s or your 30s and now you're in your 70s and you're having an uptick in activity. So whenever those things first happened, it tends to create a mark or an energy signature in your energy field, which then attracts more in the future. And it might not all happen at once. It might, like, you might have several years or decades that are quiet and then it ramps up again. So I would be really curious if those of you who've had negative spiritual experiences in the current time, if you can also think of situations where it might have started, and maybe it was a totally different scenario, but the dark forces interference started when you were younger. Yeah, so that's number 5. And Lyle Michael says, I will look it up after. Thank you, Maya. Found you from your read on Doreen Virtue, interestingly enough. Yep. And we have, so you guys, we have a few weird commenters on here, but since I don't have, like, I'm low tech with this, it's just me, I don't have an admin. So just ignore the weirdness and we just won't give it any energy. Okay. So we have 2 more to go through and we're right on time. I was planning on doing about an hour on this, so we're at about 45 minutes now. Okay, number 6 thing that can make a person vulnerable to spiritual warfare, psychic attack, is past or current involvement in dark practices or unwise spiritual exploration. So, in the past, when you were young or a teenager or in your 20s or whatever, you were curious and exploring, and maybe you got into some spiritual activities that were on the darker side of things. And please don't be embarrassed or feel shame about that. I just feel so much empathy for you if that's the case for you. Please don't feel any shame about that. Like, sometimes we do things that are kind of stupid when we're younger because we just don't know any better. And like, there are so many people who've done things when they were younger. You're not alone. If you engaged in some dark practices or even made promises or contracts with dark forces, that's also not uncommon. Sometimes people just don't realize what they're doing. So give yourself some compassion and empathy, but also know that if you did those things in the past, it absolutely can make you a target in the here and now. It is a little bit more complex to spiritually clear those things. Those are the kinds of things that I help people with in the Academy, Spiritual Empowerment Academy. But if you can find a way on your own to disavow any of that involvement and to clear that out, that's going to help tremendously. And then also if anybody is currently involved in dark practices. Now, I don't I have kind of a wholesome vibe, so I don't tend to attract like dark directed people to my channel, and I'm glad that's good. So most people watching this are not going to be people who are currently involved in dark practices. But if you happen to be, then just know, like, of course you have the personal sovereignty and freedom to do whatever spiritual practices. I really believe in personal freedom. I hope that you're not causing any harm to other people, doing black magic, doing curses, whatever language that you use for that. But just know that it is creating so many dark energy cords and access points where the demonic beings and other aspects of dark forces can easily access you. So please consider discontinuing those practices. So let's go through a list of these dark practices or unwise spiritual exploration. That can include dark rituals, calling on demons. So I know that sounds ridiculous, but there's so much content out there right now. There are books on how to psychically protect yourself, where they teach you how to call on demons to protect yourself, which is ludicrous. Okay, I'm just gonna say, like, it is the most ridiculous thing, but people sometimes are misguided. I'm gonna say it's, even though I'm very open-minded and very tolerant, that's a very misguided practice. Please don't do that. Calling on demons, making promises to the dark forces, unsafe mediumship. So mediumship itself, connecting with loved ones on the other side, can be a wonderful gift that you can share with other people, as long as you are doing all your protection, grounding, discernment, all of that. But unsafe mediumship, not good. Unprotected astral travel, using Ouija boards. And I know that I say it's okay to use pendulums and oracle cards. Ouija boards are a whole other thing. It's like you're opening up the phone line, the old landline phones. There was something called a party line, where you could like open it up and anything could connect. And that's what you're doing with Ouija boards. Not everyone agrees with me on that. That's fine. But that is a negative spiritual practice that's going to welcome in all sorts of problems. And then connecting with entities that are lower frequency spiritual entities, as well as connecting with spiritual guides, ascended beings that are actually false light, that are not actually ascended beings, that are actually dark beings posing as light. So all of that whole list that I just listed off, those are all things that you could be involved with, where you're knowingly or unknowingly connecting with dark forces. Okay, let's see. Not Gunshy says, the very dark stuff started now in my 40s. I remember seeing entities and being scared of the dark since I was a child. And recently I learned that my mom has suffered all her life. Yeah. She and I have had open heart-to-hearts about this in recent months. I think it was a natural evolution of the work I'm doing in the academy. I'm really glad. Glad that you've been able to do that work with her. Hi, Carmen. Celestial Seven Heavens says, there is also being misguided by different types of magical practices, disguising itself as white magic. Yeah. Yeah, so like that concept of false light can show up in magical practices as well. I had somebody say to me a couple years ago that just like made a blanket statement, said that, oh, Maya, you're totally anti-occult practices. And I was like, no, actually, I'm not. I'm not. There's this nuanced middle where we can engage in spiritual practices, but be discerning about the specifics and discerning which entities we're going to be involved with, which rituals are safe. Where did those rituals come from? Are we going to create our own so we know it's coming from a clean source? Or are we going to get a ritual from someone who was calling on demons? Like, so there's a level of discernment, but throwing out the entirety of all occult practices, definitely not. Like, that's not how I roll. But discernment is definitely needed. Number 7 on our list of things that can make a person more vulnerable to negative spiritual interference is generational ancestral issues. So this can be ancestral trauma. So let's say your your specific ancestral line has a lot of trauma, or your entire culture of your ancestors have a certain kind of trauma. Your specific ancestral line might have curses. So there may have been one, let's keep it simple. Let's say one person, several, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many generations ago, who did black magic against your family. And that is still affecting the current living members of your family. So even though this original situation was however many generations ago, it can be affecting you now. Okay. If there's unresolved karma in your family line, so there were negative things that happened, crimes, dark acts, murder, etc. If if a family member murdered another family member, let's say, like 6 generations ago, then there's unresolved karma in the family line. There's like a rift in the energy field, right? There's a lot of different ways that there can be unresolved karma. Here's another interesting aspect of generational issues. There can be a vow or pact or contract that was made by a past ancestor to the dark forces. So, and I use dark forces as a big umbrella term. So let's give an example. Let's say a lot of times these things have happened a few generations ago. So let's say like 3 or 4 generations ago, there was someone in your family line who they were involved in some form of black magic practices aligned with whatever culture they were a part of, because there are so many flavors of black magic practices. So they were involved in those practices, and in order to obtain more spiritual power, let's say they made a contract with the demonic realm, because let's say they were working with demons in their ritual work. They made a pact with the demonic realm to promise their progeny, their future generations, to the demonic realm. So what that would look like then is that all or some of the future progeny would be under attack or have demonic attachments. Okay. So it could be, in this example, I'm talking about the demonic realm, but it could be other aspects of dark forces targeting. So the ancestor has made a vow, a pact, or a contract to promise one or more of their progeny to the dark forces. And that does happen. It does happen. Or an ancestor, maybe they didn't make an outright contract or pact, but they were involved in some way with some aspect of the dark forces. Therefore, that dark thread is still woven through your family line, and it's causing a certain amount of oppression. So there's a lot of support for ancestral issues in Spiritual Empowerment Academy. We've had some people in the academy do some amazing ancestral clearing to clear out, which helped to clear out and assist not only their family, but the spiritual issues that they were dealing with. So it's like a root cause. So yeah, you can learn how to burn frankincense. You can learn how to do all of the prayers and energy boundary, daily energy boundaries, all the things, but addressing the root cause and like clearing the ancestry. If the ancestry is a problem, then that means that you don't have to work so hard at the daily clearing anymore, because you've released those family curses. So this list of 7 is not a complete list. There are obviously more things that can make a person vulnerable to dark forces interference, but this list is to help get you started and help get you thinking. And let's look at some more questions that you guys have, and then we'll go ahead and close out. Lyle Michael says, do you believe dark entities are a shadow aspect of ourselves or completely disembodied separate beings? Great question. So it can be either, but I will say I get very, very annoyed when I hear spiritual teachers preaching that there are no negative entities and any experience with negative entities is just an aspect of your unhealed inner shadow. I believe that is a harmful teaching to say that it is always that. I think that's truly harmful because I've worked with tons of people over the years, and as a psychic with all the clairs, I'm able to discern the difference between when it is someone's inner shadow projecting aspects into their reality, and whether it is an actual sentient entity. And so, yes, there actually are demons. There's a whole hierarchy of different types of demons. There are jinn, which are shapeshifters. There are human souls that have decided to stay on the earth plane or have gotten stuck on the earth plane. And there are a variety of other beings as well. So, and I break those down in the psychicattack Sourcebook, and I also talk about them in Revealing the False Light Agenda. I give a list of entities. And of course, there are tons of different entities, but I talk about the most common ones. Also, Lyle, there's a video, oh gosh, let's see, on my channel. I think if you type in most common entities, Maya Zahira, you'll find it. I think you'll find that very helpful. I go into detail about describing the most common entities that I've dealt with in my work. So they are absolutely not always aspects of our inner shadow. There are absolutely real entities that are negative. And Ms. Mystic, good to see you. She says, I just did some ancestral clearing. So happy for the rest. Yes. Yeah, I've been doing layers and layers and layers of ancestral clearing as well. There's a lot of junk in my family line. And when I pulled oracle cards to get clarity on what energies are coming up for me this year, I was getting a lot about clearing more ancestral stuff. So that's good. And it's also like, oh God, there's more, there's still more. So anyway, let's recap really quick the things that can make you vulnerable to spiritual warfare. Number one, if you're an empath or sensitive. Number two, you don't yet know how to protect yourself. You haven't yet learned how to ground, shield, protect, or develop your discernment. Number three, you have a damaged aura from trauma, stress, unhealthy lifestyle, drugs, exhaustion, toxic relationships. Number four, open curiosity without proper discernment, grounding, and protection as you are engaging in spiritual practices like divination, channeling, ritual work, astral travel, and all the other stuff. Number five, past childhood or earlier in life exposure to paranormal situations. Number six, past or current involvement in dark practices or unwise spiritual exploration. And number seven, generational or ancestral issues. So I want you to just, without judgment, think about if there are any of those that resonate with you that you could work on. And are they things that you could work on your own? Or are they things that you might need some support for? and where might you get that support. I think that everyone can find support in the right ways. I think some people are here on the YouTube channel to see the free videos, and then you find your own avenues of support, and that's perfect. And then some of you are here because you're supposed to get that support from either the Academy or one of my other offerings. So just take some time to consider whether you might need to address some of these vulnerabilities, if you can address it on your own, or if you need some kind of support or mentoring. If all goes as planned, I will see you next month at this same time. But remember, I mentioned that I'm thinking about changing up the time or the date, but that might not be for a couple of months. But just keep an eye out just in case. I always post lots of reminders and announcements. And I think we are done for today. Just a final reminder, if you would like more information about going deeper into this work, you can visit psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. And a couple of months ago, I created a really cool free resource. It's totally free. And all you do is you put your email into the email text box on my website, and right away you'll get an email that has a free quiz to evaluate if you are under psychic attack, and you'll be able to evaluate what level, if it's mild, moderate, or severe psychic attack, to help you get more clarity on your situation. And it was so great to see all of you today, including Ms. Mystic. Thank you for all your comments there at the end. And everybody enjoy your evening. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much.